Remember, it's Monday, and most of the Mondays we look at the question of health, which is very, very important. And today we'll not go short of that on this very special moment in the world of health, where we are talking about contraceptives, and we need to understand them deeper and better from those ones that are using them, and from the med as well, and specialists in this line. Then they will get to enlighten us on how best we get to understand this. In equal measures, contraceptives have been appreciated, but equally others have castigated the use of the same. Just where do we stand as a society when it comes to the use of contraceptives? That's technically what we'll be discussing this morning on the very special day as well, where we are coming together as the world to commemorate World Contraceptive Day, a very, very important conversation that we are about to have, and we welcome you to be part and parcel of the same. And we'll be having 3 ladies and 1 gentleman to help us decipher on this. It's clearly a business of the ladies, as one would want to look at it, but I'm told that even men use contraceptives, and Daktari here will be expounding further for us to get to understand. Rosemary Kihoto is one of our guests this morning, RMNCAH. She will be telling us what that is about, programs lead. Thank you so much for creating time to be with us this morning, Rosemary, as well as none other than Veronica Muthoni. Veronica Muthoni is confidently saying that I use contraceptives, and I mean, it has worked for me, it has not worked for me. We'll definitely get to have her experience, and we get to understand why she decides that way and of what importance then this is. Also away from Veronica, we have Dorcas Nduku, who is a community health volunteer, pretty much works with these people that use contraceptives, on a day-to-day basis, and, enlightening them, getting information, gathering information that would be helpful to make sure that they get it right. And lastly, Professor Peter Gachangi, who is also with us this morning. Professor, thank you so much for also creating time. Professor is a sexual reproductive health expert. It's good to have you. Why is it that it appears like contraceptives, are a business for women?
Thank you. Professor Peter Gachangi, as you said, is my name. Obstetrician gynecologist, right. Based at the Technical University of Mombasa, right. And the principal investigator for PMA. Family planning clearly is an issue of a couple. So it is not ladies only, although we have more ladies today, but it's a matter which pertains to 2 individuals. Yeah. Why 2 individuals? And I will clarify, because at times can be a matter for 1 individual, both man and woman. But family planning, in the bigger context, we talk about contraceptives. Because when you talk about family planning, you're talking about individuals who are planning a family. Right. That is the number of children they want, the spacing of those children. But when you talk about contraception, the individuals who may be sexually active, right. But they do not intend to have children, or they don't intend to become pregnant. And in that situation, they are contraceptive. So the contraception is a bigger term than family planning. Yeah. And therefore, when you look at a young person who is using pills, is one of them are family planning methods, which you swallow every day, or you have an injection, which is every 3 months, or you have an implant, which is put on the left arm, which serves you for about 5 years, yeah. Or you have a coil, which is put in the womb where the baby grows. Those are methods individuals can use. But I must clarify that there are 2 categories, what we call modern contraceptives and traditional methods. Yeah. Both are equally important. The fact one is called traditional does make it less important, because there are women and there are men who may not be able to use the modern methods. Right. But let me mention, for men, we have vasectomy, we have condoms, we have abstinence, and those can work. Of course, there are other things being tested to try and see how can men contribute. But men have a bigger role to play, because they can encourage their women to go and get those family planning methods. Right. So indeed, it is not a one person. Okay, pretty much on demand. We would want to say, Dorcas, just how much is, the availability of contraceptives for the people now that you work with those ones that are in our very own society, and in these various spaces, the community is still lagging behind. There's no proper knowledge as pertaining to contraceptives. Just how much penetration is there, and of what importance is what it is that you do, as a community health worker or volunteer?
Okay, my name is Dorcas, as you've said, and I work with the community as a community health volunteer. And I come from Embakasi, attached at Quarren Dispensary. And the intake has not been that much, since there are so many myths and misconceptions in the society. But at the same time, as a community healthy volunteer, we normally encourage and create awareness to the society on family planning matters, because it's not that we don't inform them about it. It's not that we don't talk much about family planning, but you find that some of these people believe that there are so many challenges that comes together with family planning methods. Yeah, so I think that's why it's not being appreciated.
All right.
Since there are so many myths in the society.
Veronica, before we come to you, there's that, acknowledgement that there is an existence of contraceptives, but at the same time, we really have lots of unwanted pregnancies. And we get to a space where we ask ourselves, is it because there's no proper knowledge? Is it because there's no proper civic education that is being conducted as pertaining to this? Or it's a question of availability? Just why? Yes, to you. No, before we come to Veronica, yes.
So I'm Rosemary Kihoto. I work for an organization called the Clinton Health Access Initiative.
Yes.
And we partner with government to address some of the challenges we have in the public health space. One of them being issues of reproductive health and family planning included in there. So, and it's good, I think you've linked up from Dorcas's. When you think about the women we are targeting, you have to think about whether those products actually reach them. So you can do everything else from the community, from the facilities, have your nurses trained, but are the commodities there? Will the clients come in and find the commodities? And availability is a function of many things. This facility has to know what their target population is and quantify for that need correctly or accurately. So if you don't quantify correctly and order in time, you may not get enough for the women who will walk into your facilities. So on that level, that can affect availability. On the second level, you are aware that health is a devolved function. And so counties are, in some ways, of course, supposed to support some aspects of family planning services. One of them being maybe procurement of the consumables. Family planning commodities are what we consider strategic commodities. They are expected to be procured at the central level by the national government. And so on those two levels, so if one of these two levels are not providing the commitments that they're expected to have or to provide, then you may have gaps. At the national level, just making sure that there is enough allocation of resources that can be available for procurement of all the commodities we need for the country. At the county level, to ensure that the facilities are ordering all the consumables that are required to go hand in hand with the commodities are procured or provided to the facilities. So making sure these two link up to a point where, you know, a woman can walk into the facility and find the commodities available. So if we're not budgeting with enough resources, secondly, if we're not procuring enough, thirdly, if also our procurement processes have delays and are not efficient, there are situations, those are situations that can cause unavailability in our facilities and affect the uptick that Dorcas was talking about.
Okay, Veronica, your brief journey about, with contraceptives, perhaps where it is that you started from, the availability of the same. This is one thing that a majority of women will tell you is quite foreign, and also, I mean, administering or incorporation of something foreign into their bodies and so. So it comes with a lot of fears. Perhaps just to take us, through what it is the journey has been from the time that you started contraceptives.
Okay.
And I mean, well, you are free to tell us which one, or still, if you're not comfortable, well.
Okay. My name is Veronica Muthoni. I'm an FP champion, ambapo nimetumia for about 17 years.
Wow.
Ile kitu nilifanya nitumie FP, nilikuwa nimeolewa alafu nikapata mtoto. Within short time sikuwa nimeelewa mambo ya FP sana. After 1 year nikapata niko pregnant tena.
Okay.
Kupata niko pregnant tena, kuongea na bwana yangu mambo ya upangaji wa uzazi, juu kuna community health volunteers walikuwa wanatembea. Bwana yangu alisita kidogo, but nikaona mimi ndio nabaki na mtoto, na hiyo style ya kata kuspace watoto itani affect. Sasa ndipo nilipewa referral na CHV mwenzangu. Nikaenda hospitali ambayo ya health center, inaitwa Lungalunga Health Center. Nikapata kupewa mawaidha na nikaambiwa hakuna kuchagua, mimi mwenyewe ndio nafaa kujichagulia ile method nafaa kutumia.
Okay.
Na nikaona nitumie pills for the time being. Ambapo nilitumia hizo pills nikaona hazinipeleki vizuri, juu nasahau.
Okay.
Unfortunately nikapata mimba pia, mtoto after 1 year tena nikapata mtoto mwingine. Sasa nikaona hazinipeleki vizuri sana, ndipo after kupata mtoto sasa wa 3 nikaona wacha nitumie method ambayo ita sustain for a long time. Sasa nikatumia ya miaka 5.
Miaka 5.
Yeah.
All right. Well, an amazing story there, and most of the ladies will tell you they have such experiences. As late as sometimes in 20, let's speak about, I don't know whether the situation has changed, sometimes in 2014, 2015 there, the pills that she speaks of were not available, at least from my little research. I don't know whether we now have them in plenty, of course, available. But then again, when we come to these commodities, as Rosalind would say, I mean, you realize that there's always a difference. Sometimes it would work for a certain individual, sometimes it would not work, sometimes it would be health difficulties that come along with that. Sometimes it works pretty well for certain individuals. What happens in such a scenario, and how then does one get the hormones balanced and, you know, equally accepting the method that they pick?
Thank you for, for that question. Indeed, when you start the journey of using family planning and you meet a healthcare provider, the first thing they do is they apply medical eligibility criteria.
Okay.
So these are criteria which has been set and verified that individuals with certain issues like blood pressure or weight or certain things may not qualify for certain methods. And that's why it's extremely important to be able to see a healthcare provider in your journey.
Yeah.
You can start from on-the-counter medication, but make an effort to make sure that you have seen a clinician. Because depending on your situation, the advice can be you use this method because it will make sure that your blood pressure doesn't go up, or use this method because you react to metal, or use this method because, for example, if you have had 4 or 5 children and you don't want any more children, there's a method we call sterilization, both for men and for women. And so you see the circumstances of your situation dictates what is best for you. But also important is what she has explained, that in between we allow you to make the choice, because as you walk to that health facility, you have some ideas about what you want. And the healthcare providers will tell you about the method mix, what methods are available, what are the pros and cons for each of those methods. And based on that discussion, and based on what you have been evaluated, then you can, you and the healthcare provider, and sometimes your partner, you can decide this is the most optimal method for us. When you're using, we also advise that you need to visit periodically the health facility to check the method you're using, have they having any reaction, any impact on your health. And because minimally sometimes something can happen. And when that happens, then we can switch you from one method to another. So the place for the healthcare provider, the place for community health volunteer is extremely important in your journey to use contraceptives. Yes.
All right, and very, very important, Dorcas, that people get to understand this. And there's still that gap. As you rightfully hear, you know, Veronica speaks of FP, family planning. And Dr. earlier mentioned that, you know, there's contraceptive, which is bigger than the family planning. Just how much does the society and the community down there understand about the difference between contraceptives and family planning, especially in this time and age where we're also having very many cases of teenage pregnancies, and parents also warming up to the fact that they can actually have their children, you know, getting a family planning, or better yet, getting contraceptives to protect them from this?
Okay. According to my understanding, or according to my observation in the society, is that there is a very big gap when it comes to family planning matters. Reason behind it, it's because some of these people, they normally believe you must be married for you to plan on how to get your kids, on how to space your children. Yeah, so you find that if we have those teenagers around the society, hawayuko tayari kupanga uzazi, licha ya kuwa they are involved in sexual intercourse. They are very much active in sexual intercourse. They are very active and they don't want to plan themselves. Simply because they have some other beliefs, like nikipanga uzazi sitawahi kuwa na uwezo wa kupata mimba. Like nikiwa sina mume siwezi panga uzazi. Like even for those who are married, utapatana na mama anakuambia siwezi nikapanga uzazi. Like for example, kuna hii method daktari ametaja IUCD, that is coil. Utasikia mama anakuambia niliweka coil, ambapo inaweza kuwa ni story, inaweza kuwa si ukweli, na anakuambia niliweka coil. Mzee akaniambia naisikia. And kuna kitu kama CHV nimekuja kurealize. These men normally plays with ladies' brains. Because I don't see how mambo na sex ina relate na vile atasikia coil. Right. Because according to vile daktari atatuambia na vile tumefundishwa kama CHVs, hakuna mahali mwanaume atakutana na coil during sexual intercourse. Right. Hakuna mahali watakutana. But the thing is, the moment your husband realizes that you are using an high UCD, atakwambia hii kitu naisikia na hii kitu inafanya nisifurahie. And because of that, you find that ladies are not taking this type of method. Right. And at the same time, there are those methods that again, once you use them, you are not receiving your monthly periods due to how it works in your body. Yeah. We might be using the same method, but I'm having my menses, but you are not having your menses. Right. Reason behind it, our hormones works differently. And so utakuja kupata mama anakuambia mimi hiyo kitu nilitumia and sipati period, na niliambiwa kama sipati period ni watu wa mtaa. By the way, si daktari alimwambia, but aliambiwa kama apati period kuna uwezekano wa kupata nini? Cancer, mara sijui growth and all that.
The myths.
So those myths are key barriers as to why watu hawachukui sana methods zenye tuna advocate for family planning.
The myths and the side effects, and we are running very fast into this because also on the aspect of time, we need to create that balance. It's a reality that is in society today. And sometimes ladies feel like, the men are a little bit unfair because when you tell them, let's use protection, for instance, yes, use, condoms, they will tell you, well, it affects me, it does not, work well with me. Like you say, there are instances where you'll take this, they say, well, I'm not comfortable when you have that. But they will not go for a vasectomy. They will not go for all these methods that also are for the men. How do we get ourselves from such spaces?
So this is where I think the financing conversation has to also include the kind of work that Dorcas and Veronica do. So it goes beyond providing the commodities. So if you have these myths that are preventing the clients to come in, it means your commodities will just sit in the facilities and perhaps expire. There would not be any users. So we have to extend our financing conversation to financing the community and the kind of engagements that we have at the community level, where they have a better reach than, say, coming into the facilities for that one in a week health talk from a health provider perhaps who's too busy and quite having a huge workload. So if we had a network and a big network covering the entire country of community health volunteers who are out there educating our women on the availability of the services, on the various methods that are available, we would perhaps be able to address some of the myths and misconceptions that are out there. So financing has to extend to such levels. And today, I think we know our community health volunteers are not part of the public service, and maybe it's a conversation that we need to have a situation that needs to be corrected.
All right, and we'll come to Dr. to get to understand whether these are myths or indeed these are valid concerns that perhaps need to be addressed. But ladies and gentlemen, allow us to take a quick short break, and then we come back on that very note after this break.
Disability is not only limited to physical disorder, but also mental issue. From depression,
I was under depression for like 2 years.
Bipolar.
Bipolar disorder is a mood disorder.
And even suicidal thoughts.
When I was just about to hang myself, a certain voice just talked to me, and I believe that was God. I tried suicide more than 6 times.
Beyond the Limit has gone beyond its limit to find answers so as to help everyone go through life with ease. Join Muthoni Maina every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Starting this September at 8:30 p.m. on Tuesday, The Realtor brings it all to perspective. We identify a property, discuss and demonstrate the journey to... You ready for the freshest? Disability is not only limited to physical disorder, but also mental issue. From depression,
I was under depression for like 2 years.
Bipolar.
Bipolar disorder is a mood disorder.
And even suicidal thoughts.
When I was just about to hang myself, a certain voice just talked to me, and I believe that was God. I tried suicide more than 6 times.
Beyond the Limit has gone beyond its limit to find answers so as to help everyone go through life with ease. Join Muthoni Maina every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Starting this September at 8:30 p.m. on Tuesday, The Realtor brings it all to perspective. We identify a property, discuss and demonstrate the journey towards ownership.
Professionals who...
Well, in studio with me, Rosemary Kihoto, as well as Veronica Muthoni, and Dorcas Nduku, as well as Peter Gachangi, professor, as we discuss matters contraceptives. And in this very day, or on this very day that we commemorate World Contraceptive Days, it's very, very important that we reflect on the myths and misconceptions, and of course the modern contraceptive use, as we generate awareness, which is very, very important. Also create that aspect of demand for family planning services, and as well advocate to increase access to family planning commodities. And this is what we're looking at. Before we took that break, just focusing on the myths and misconceptions that revolve around this. Dr. You know, sometimes they can be labeled as myths, but in real sense there's some basis as to these arguments, and perhaps that's the reason why on every other day there's always research that has been conducted as to the use of contraceptives, the commodities that are available in the market, and how they react with different people. And so when we talk about some of these myths, the ones that have been raised right here by Dorcas, do you suppose there's a basis or there's a ground? And what are the effects of the same, or of these myths, in terms of the uptake or the intake of the same, of family planning and contraceptives in general?
Thank you for that question. I would start by saying that, generally speaking, methods of family planning are safe. Remember, I talked about medical eligibility criteria. If you start from there and then get to use, then you're starting from a good point, because we know your systems can be able to handle these things. Mm-hmm. But we also know that in some situations, for example, use of the pills, hormonal methods, can cause somebody's blood pressure to go up. So that's something we know and can happen. Mm-hmm. But you see, for how many women out of 100 does that happen?
Okay.
It's very few. You may find, let's say out of 1,000, you may find one woman with that kind of a problem. So the occurrence of those events is very rare. So that there could be a basis for it. But you see 1 in 1,000 women is very few. But for that woman, that's an issue.
Right.
And that's why I said that you need to go to a health facility when you're using to make sure that those checks are done to avoid in the event that something like that was going to happen.
Allow me to cut you short, Dr.
Yes.
and then we'll come back to the very same one and perhaps loop in Veronica to understand whether she experienced any of side effects the moment you got into the 5-year, duration contraceptive. Did you experience some, anomalies with your bodies that got you perhaps thinking that maybe unataka kubadilisha uchukue kitu ingine tofauti ama hata uache kuchukua contraceptives? And does it feel unfair that it is you to carry the burden and not the man?
Okay, asante sana kwa swali hilo. Mimi nilipoanza kutumia, nilisema kwanza nilitumia hizi tembe.
Yes.
Tembe, ile shida ilikuja ni kusahau. Sometimes nasahau nimemeza, alafu tunaambiwa adherence inakuanga mzuri sana.
Yeah.
Sasa sometimes nameza asubuhi, tena simezi asubuhi, unaona adherence haiko poa sana. Na wanda nikajipata kwa ile situation ya kupata mimba ingine.
Yeah.
Sasa venye nilitumia hii null plant, at least ile challenge nimepata ni period azifuatanishi at every month.
Yeah.
Zinapotea, sometimes zinamaliza 2 months bila kukuja. But after kwenda kwa daktari kupata consultation, waliniambia ni normal. Ni normal.
Right.
Yeah, sina effects mingi sana isipokuwa labda sometimes hizo kosa menses. Yeah.
Right. Did you grow big somehow? Ama ilikuwa because the instances we were told hapo unaongeza kilo. There are some of them who have, menses almost on regular and then it gets them a little bit worried.
At least niliongeza slightly. But kulingana na mawaidha ya daktari, exercise nafanya na kunywa maji mingi.
Okay.
At least sasa naona na maintain. But niliongeza slightly vile nilianza.
Daktari.
Yes.
Yes, and you've had one of the experiences, and ladies will tell you they have different experiences, especially when they're using the very same commodity. And so, like you rightfully put it could be just one person.
Yes.
But then again, it is this one person that would go out there and, present these myths that are totally different, that are totally against what it is that is the reality.
Yeah, that is correct. And you see, as she has explained very well, that sometimes you can see weight gain.
Yeah.
And we monitor that weight gain. If it reaches a certain point that we see you're becoming obese, that is your BMI, basal metabolic index rate is very high, then we can stop you from that method because there are hormonal methods, non-hormonal methods. For example, the coil, that is non-hormonal method. And when you use that, your weight doesn't change. Hormonal methods can cause changes in weight. But the point is that majority of the things which are said have no scientific basis.
Okay.
For them to say, like she explained about the coil, that the man is feeding the coil. No, it doesn't happen. But there are very rare circumstances where what we call partial expulsion. If the coil is coming out where it was placed, then in those rare circumstances, somebody can feel it. But when it is in the right place, it doesn't. They are myth about baby born holding the coil. That doesn't happen. They are in separate spaces.
Okay.
And because of that, when a baby is born, there's no chance that baby is going to be holding that coil. Or it has moved from where it was put to your heart or wherever. No, those things don't happen. But
a very important, valid concern here. Does it, in a way, reduce the pleasures, especially for the men, when they are engaging? And even for the women, sometimes I'm told with the differences, in perhaps the pleasure is not the same.
If you allow me to answer that question, yes, there's something called reduction in libido. Okay? And that can happen with hormonal methods. But again, a very rare event. A lot of the challenges we see are in the head.
Okay.
It is what you think about it. It is what you feel about it. It is actually not the physical thing which is there. And because of that, that's why, I have had, as a gynecologist, I've had many things from the ladies of what they've been told about the menses. I mean the contraceptives. When you do a tubal ligation, then you are said to be cold.
Yes.
Cold from where?
Okay.
It is not the tube which generates the heat. Okay. Those kind of things. So I think it's important that they have a big role to play as community health volunteers to educate the masses that these things do not hold truth. And that if you are counseled appropriately, for example, the first 6 months of using an implant, they are very difficult for the woman because the menses are interrupted. They cannot tell you when they are going to come. And after the 6 months to 1 year maximum, then somebody goes back to their normal rhythm. And that is normal. If you miss your periods, I'm told by my patients, they are going to explode one day. From what? It is not there. The menses don't accumulate. That one day you poop.
Oh, they will, okay.
No, it doesn't happen.
All right.
Because where the menses come from, because of the method you're using, has become so thin.
Okay.
But that you don't make the period.
All right.
And those kind of understanding is required. So the more our women know about this thing, the more they know about their biology.
Right.
Then it becomes easy to explain these things.
Abdominal pains, any?
No abdominal pains at all. If you have pain and you have a coil, you have an infection.
All right. And it's important then that you visit the
Exactly.
place. All right. Rosemary, let's come back to you and speak about the question of age, and which is very, very important. Today, we are talking about the age of consent. But even at a very tender age, parents are advised to take their children or their girls for contraceptives because, as of course, Dorcas would rightfully say, they are engaging. And that is the reality of the matter. Some have said it's a good thing. Others have said it's not a good thing. I do not know what you make of this. And are there methods recommended for specific age groups? Or maybe you want Daktari to answer that.
I think
Daktari is best positioned to answer that.
That is okay.
Right, yes,
that is fine.
Yes.
Thank you. What qualifies you to use contraceptives? If you're sexually active, that's the first qualification.
Okay.
Because the moment you're sexually active, we know the consequence is what? A pregnancy. And if you know that you can prevent a pregnancy, like the theme for today is every pregnancy is wanted.
Yeah.
You must only become pregnant when you want to become pregnant, not when you have forgotten to swallow your pills and things like that.
Right.
So what's the qualification? You are sexually active. And our guidelines have been very clear that if you're sexually active and you require to use family planning, then you can access. So the age limit is not there because the age limit is what? When do you become sexually active? If you're active at 21, that's when you start. Okay. If you're active at 10, that's when you start. Oh. Yes.
Okay, no effects, long-term effects that come along with this?
There shouldn't be long-term effects. Okay. There should not be long-term effects.
There's stories of that, you know, perhaps at a time when you now want to get pregnant, you're not able to get pregnant, that if you have an implant, you have to remove it like around 6 months earlier so that then you're able to conceive. Those ones remain myths?
Those are myths. The pill, if you stop today, tomorrow you become pregnant.
Is it?
The implant, you remove it today, tomorrow you become pregnant.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
So those issues are very straightforward. But like we said earlier, there are some people who can have delayed return to fertility. That means somebody stops the pills today and they become pregnant 6 months later. Another stop today, the following night they are pregnant. Right. So those delays do happen because humans are different. Right. And because of that, you can find individuals who may take a little longer for their fertility to come back. But the ecosystem, the space for contraception has so many players, so many factors which are important to influence whether you become pregnant or don't become pregnant. And whether you feel okay with the method or not okay with the method. Right. So you have to look at the totality of the person. It's just not looking at, are you using the pill and therefore the pill is one causing you this. Is it the pill causing you reduction in the need or the desire to have a sexual relationship, what we call libido? Right. It may not be the fact that you're taking the pill. It could be other circumstances. For example, if you're unwell, naturally the sex drive goes down. Okay. But if you don't put the context of that you're unwell and you're using a pill and other things are happening, you are very stressed in your relationship, that contributes to reduction of libido. You blame the pill. And the pill probably was not the one responsible. Okay. So you have to look at the totality of things. Right. Yeah.
Dorcas, I don't know how much you advocate for this in as much as you say that you're out there to make sure that you volunteer to enlighten the community on this. There's the aspect of culture, there's tradition, there's what it is that this community believes in. That first of all, it's a taboo for even parents to hear that this child is engaging at 10, at 12, in as much as it's a reality. And so it's become so hard for us to come from this phase to this phase where we can embrace contraceptives and all that. How, I mean, are you making sure that this is well received in society today, and also make them understand that it's not something that comes in to invade in the space of culture?
Honestly, it's not an easy thing. Yeah. It's not an easy duty for us as CHVs. Yeah, so ni kazi ngumu kwetu kama CHVs. Yeah. Kuongea na wazazi na kuwa convinced that their teenagers needs to have these methods.
Yeah.
It's not an easy task. At the same time, tuko na hao watu wengine ambao wanaamini watoto ni baraka. Na still tuko na wale wengine pia wanasema Biblia inasema tuzae tunjaze dunia. Changamoto kwa CHV, they are like mulima tu.
Right.
But still we are working and working very hard to make sure that kila mtu kwa society yako safe, because to be a CHV it's like a call kwenda kuhubiri injili.
Okay.
That is all what I can say. Because it is not an easy duty.
Yeah.
And being that we are not being paid by anyone,
Yeah.
it has not been easy for us. Personally, I've been a CHV since 2008. Na to volunteer sio rahisi. Si rahisi. Na hata kama si rahisi, nashukuru Mungu kwa sababu kila mtu ambaye anaitwa CHV, na ninajua hata nyinyi mnajua hiyo, ni mtu ako na call yenye. It's a unique call actually. For pastors and all those people who normally preach the gospel, wanakula sandaka. For us, tuna trust Mungu.
And is there an impact, a positive impact, such that you can say, well, at the end of the day, there's no money on the table, but at least there's value for what I've been doing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Na that is what keeps us going. Kama hatungekuwa tunaona matunda ya kazi yetu, personally singekuwa ninaona matunda ya kazi yangu, singeendelea. But since nikienda na niongee na 1, 2, 3 people, at the end of the day, kuna yule mmoja tu ana get convinced na the message that I have. That keeps me going.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'll come back to you, Veronica, but first let's have Rosemary speak to this. Next week, should be next 28th of September, we celebrate International Safe Abortion Day. And that is to say that a majority of countries have accepted the fact that there are times when a pregnancy is unwanted, there are times someone has been raped, there are instances where there will be that need of safe abortion. And sometimes this gets young girls, a little bit lazy on the way they handle themselves. They will not go for contraceptives, but at the same time they will engage, knowing very well that there's an option for them to go out there and abort these kids. We really do not want to get to that space, and Dr. alluded to it earlier on. When we're looking at the availability of contraceptives and the intake per se, so to speak, and how society perceives and appreciates this, what needs to be done so that we can get to that space? And when we say that the laws should allow safe abortion, does it contradict the gains that we're trying to make with contraceptives?
I think the first thing we need to do is provide information, and the right information to the right people, and for the right age groups, for example. And as she was saying, there are many barriers that are out there in society. And so when you think, for example, about the teenage girls, and I know even during COVID we had a lot of this, that many of the girls were getting pregnant, they need to have the right information in terms of, what are the risks that are involved, how can you prevent this? And the same thing even when it comes to abortion. What information is in the hands of these women or these girls? And what does that information cover? Does it empower them to make the right decisions at different points? And sometimes maybe we shy away as a society from doing this, yet we know some of these things are happening, or they are happening. When you have 10-year-olds getting pregnant, 13-year-olds getting pregnant, or a majority of your students getting pregnant and not perhaps sitting the exams, it means we need to wake up and confront the issue and address the issues. We have also what we call influencers. I think she's hinted on this. You have parents, you have religious leaders. What information do they have in terms of the realities that are happening in our society and in terms of what needs to happen? And I think for me, on a personal level, we just need to make sure that we are breaking those barriers from different points. From the girl who's at risk and their influencers, could be teachers, could be their religious leaders, could be their parents, could be that neighbor, and making sure that that information is helping everyone make a right decision, including the girl.
Right. Veronica, kama ungekuwa na kitu kimoja ambacho ungetaka kuambia labda mwanaume in all this, ungewaambia nini? Manake you started by saying that, you know, hugely it was about you, and then your husband says do not go to eat, but you realize that it's you who remains at home with the child, or it's you who has to worry. You know, you want to go to the office, but there's a child here, and so the burden hugely is on you. What is this one thing that you tell the man?
Thanks sana. Ile kitu ningetaka kusema kama vile daktari alisema, wanafaa kuinvolviwa. Hii family planning inafaa watu wawili, couple, au ndio wanafaa kudecide wenyewe wakiwa wawili, wanajua ni nini ya maana kufanya na ni method gani tutatumia sisi in case ati nikiwa labda nina side effect, naweza share na bwana yangu na nielewa. Na kama ni kwenda clinic, at least tukienda na yeye inaweza kuwa iko advantage sana tukiwa sisi wote wawili. Juu pia yeye anaweza, unajua method zote zinaweza kuharibikia, but kuna ile ya mwanaume tunaita vasectomy. Si pia hiyo inaweza anda na yeye. Pia kuna male condoms. At least wakilivuvua kwa hii session inaweza kuwa mzuri sana.
Right.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the condoms, which is very, very important, and generally contraception or contraceptive. It is important for us to understand what is the use. Perhaps this would have been the first question of this, because again, you get a 12-year-old, you know, to having a no plant or implant, and you know, the next thing, they are out there. They are really excited because they know 101% sure I cannot get pregnant. But there are other troubles that come along with intercourse. And so when we talk about contraceptives, are we looking at spaces where we're going to advance this to levels where when you're protected, you know, like when you're using condom, much as it's not 100% you know, effective, we would want to say that it's around 99% there, that we could get to spaces where they're protected. First of all, they can't get pregnant, but at the same time, from, you know, the sexual transmitted diseases.
Yeah, thank you. Indeed, condom have a very big place to play in the mixture of family planning, because pills or the methods of family planning do not prevent you from getting sexually transmitted infection. And there are many of them. And so the value of condom, and that's why we say dual protection. You're using the condom to prevent a pregnancy, but also prevent the sexually transmitted infections. And so for different individuals may benefit from using exclusively condoms. But I must put caution here. A lot of times you are told they start with and end up without. So it means there is inconsistent use of condoms, and that is not going to protect you from the two situations, pregnancy and STIs. And there also female condom, which has dramatically improved the usability of that condom, the comfort. It is much better than the initial products. So a woman can, and the female condom is useful because you can put it a little earlier. It can be used, can be inserted way before sexual activity happens. Male condom has to be used at the time of sexual activity. But in general, young people would be encouraged. But let me take a step back and say, for a young person who is sexually active, who should be their first point of call? Their parents. Okay. And so parents must be comfortable to talk to their daughters and sons. It is not only daughters, because who makes a girl pregnant? It is a boy.
The boy.
And therefore you must be able to engage both, sons and daughters. And if you are comfortable as parents, then you are going to solve a lot of problems. Because if the person, for one, you know, experimentation and something like that happened, they became sexually active, they can stop. And they may not need to use contraceptives. But the moment they don't have that point of reference, their point of reference is internet, social media, friends, they get misinformation. And so I think we must take a step back as a country and ask, what is the role of parents in the whole situation of young people growing? The moment you can make your decisions at the age of 18, then you have to decide as an individual. But before that time, let's support our sons and daughters.
Right.
By we parents being there to discuss those issues.
But just how important is it for people to, you know, use contraceptives in this time and age, and especially when also we're talking about the commodity, its security, and most importantly, that distribution to the last mile?
Extremely important. Right now, Kenya has made tremendous progress since 2014, where family planning usage among married women of reproductive age, and I'm very specific, married women, was about 56. Today, 2021, is about 61%. That means we have made progress. For all women, Remember, the difference is that all women includes women who are not sexually active. We have moved up from about 40 to about 46 in a space of about 8 or so years. So Kenya has made progress, but we are not yet there because there are still women who are left behind, meaning they need and they are not accessing. Well, we have what we call unmet need for family planning or unmet need for contraception. And that is mainly young women, girls 15 to 19, women who are in rural areas, women who are less educated, women who are less economically empowered. So if you are to address those things, and the country is very clear, no woman should be left behind. So if you are to apply that, then these women who are being left behind currently, we bring them to the picture, then we'll be able to improve our usage of family planning or contraceptive in general. It's extremely important because repeated pregnancies have an effect on the mother, because then you lose blood and you are anemic and you're not very well. It has an effect on the baby. Frequent babies, then you find they don't survive very well. And so the interval which is recommended is about 24 months between a pregnancy. So if you want to do that, because you need to have babies, then use family planning for spacing. And this family planning for remitting, meaning you have 5 babies, you don't want more, and you stop. And you can use a coil which can protect you up to 13 years. So if you're 30 today and you use that and you say, I don't want more children, until you're 43. By the time you remove it. Very good protection. And very few visitations to the doctor. But remember, not every person can use a coil. As you said in the beginning, because you need to be checked, and that is available for you.
All right, Professor, thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. We barely have time. I think we have only 3 minutes, and allow the ladies to give us their parting shots, especially as they speak to this matter, and most importantly, how important this day then is to all of us. Dorcas, we start with you, and your message to the stakeholders that are involved in this and the community at large. Maybe neno la mwisho tu tukifunga.
Okay. Neno la mwisho ningependa tu niseme ya kwamba family planning are very safe kwa kila mtu ambaye ako eligible. Ni muhimu kwa sababu itakupatia muda wa kulea watoto, itakupatia muda wa kuwa na afya njema na muda pia wa kutafutia watoto wako. Nikienda pande ile ingine kama CHV, sitakosa kutetea CHVs wenzangu nikijitetea. Tumekuwa tukivolunteer kwa muda mrefu, but I thank God and still na shukuru our current governor Sakaja amepush mpaka tumepata stipend ya like last 3 months yenye ilikuwa imetengwa na NMS before watoke. Ilikuwa tumepromisiwa kwa muda mrefu sana tutakuwa tunapewa stipend, but still kulingana na vile Sakaja anaongea, kwa kweli kama ata implement, I think hata hizo gaps mingi zitapungua kwa sababu CHV motivated kufanya kazi kwa njia iliyo sawa, kwa sababu ukiwa hauna kitu unapata, utafanya kazi na less hours kwa sababu uko na shughuli ya kutafutia pia jamii yako. But ukiwa na kitu unapata, I guess pia itakupatia moral na utakuwa na time mingi ya kuinform ama ya create awareness in the society.
Asante sana kwa kazi nzuri and all the best. Veronica, kidogo tu tukimalizia.
Sawa, kwanza nikushukuru kwa huu muda. Ile kitu ningesema family planning ina work. Na hizo myth na misconception si za ukweli, juu ime work for me and I'm proud of it.
All right, that's good. Thank you so much. Rosemary, as we close.
So family planning is an important intervention, and as we've heard, there's a population or there's a cohort of women who need contraceptives or family planning interventions and are not getting it. So we need to make sure that when they come to our facilities, that the services are available, they have the method mix that is available, and that information is provided to them to make a good choice. And that way the livelihoods of many women, children, families will be sustained.
Yes. All right, Daktari, speak to the fact that perhaps this could not be 100% effective, as many women will tell you that sometimes, I had the coil but I still got pregnant and all that. So in such a case, well, how do we handle it?
Thank you. like we said earlier, family planning is very effective, but there are chances where things fail. For example, if you are using a coil, and I talked about partial or complete expulsion, that means it has moved from where it was put. In that situation, you may become pregnant. She explained the situation of where you forget that you are supposed to take the pills. If it's at 8 o'clock, it is 8 o'clock every day. And then you swallow much later and those kind of things. So my point is that if you follow the doctors, the healthcare workers, let me not call the doctor, healthcare workers, guidance, you are likely to be successful.
Right.
And those incidences of breakthrough or failed contraception may not happen. If you have a 5-year and you're in year 6 and you forgot it was supposed to have been removed, in between that period of time, you may become pregnant.
That's true.
But I must commend Kenyan government and the stakeholders for the tremendous progress you have seen over time. And the Kenyan women and men, because like she's explained, you can have the products, but nobody is willing to consume them.
That's right.
But I think we need to take it further and say, yes, we can be proud of our family planning program.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Dr. Peter Gachangi, for the great insights, who is a sexual reproductive health expert, as well as Nduku Dorcas, community health volunteer. Thank you so much for putting up the fight. I mean, and I hope that indeed your cries are heard too, as well as Veronica Muthoni, contraceptive user. Asante sana for speaking to us this morning. And lastly, none other than Rosemary. Rosemary, thank you as well for speaking to us this morning and enlightening us so much on this. Rosemary Kihoto is the you didn't tell us what RMN
Health, Maternal, Newborn and Child Health.
Yes, program lead. Thank you so much for speaking to us as well this morning. We close this one. I know it's a conversation that is on. In case you're just joining us, not to worry. You find this on our social media platforms. We close it as we look forward to see you again tomorrow. My name is Linda Alelah. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing. Thank you.